We're all looking Christmassy today.
Yeah. Happy
Merry,
holidays and Merry Christmas.
yeah, Merry Christmas. I think it's still in advance, so yeah, Merry Christmas in
Yeah.
advance.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah,
most of the things are pretty shut down in here right now.
yeah. I mean, some guys are still up, but I mean,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
week is a serious week. By Wednesday,
yeah.
everything should be down.
That's
Totally.
true. That's true. I still have a bunch of meetings today, but from tomorrow my calendar is pretty open. So.
Yeah. All right.
Um, all right. So I see we're recording this or we're doing live or which one is it?
No, we are live. We are live.
Okay, okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. All right. Happy holidays to everyone too. So all right, we got some interesting stories. Do you want me to kick it off?
Yeah, I think the topic for today, which says Claude gets smarter, I think I would like us to
Oh,
start.
okay. So
Yeah.
it's interesting how I feel like Claude is Anthropic is also like an R&D department for OpenAI.
Yeah.
So whatever they do, they OpenAI seems to be copying it. They've been using this. So the story is about agent links, agent scales. Sorry,
Yeah.
I keep saying agent link. That's our
Mhm.
product. Agent skills. We mentioned this story a few weeks back when it initially came out, and we did compare how agent skills is sort of different than MCP. I think agent skills gonna take off. I feel like
Yeah.
because the idea is quite simple. You don't even have to be technical developer to do it. So I see not lots of non-technical folks will be able to create skills. On the other hand, MCP was very heavy protocol heavy, right? You have to have streamable HTTP, you have to have a different spec. Um, uh, so I feel like that's one of the reason I think we'll get take off. Anyway, so the story here is that sort of officially agent skills are open source now. So Anthropic has donated that again, like MCP. This protocol is open source. There is a
Mm.
new website for that, and I think quickly follow up. OpenAI finally disclosed that they are also using agent skills, so it's part of Codex now. Um,
Oh.
so so the scoop was internally they were already using it, but they never mentioned skills. But now they
Oh.
officially are mentioning that, oh, we also support agent skills. Um, so
That's for
it's
OpenAI.
yeah, OpenAI. So Codex has a support for that. So this is
Okay.
part of the standard. I feel like this will go similarly how MCP ended
MCP.
up. You
Yeah.
talked about this, the AI Foundations Alliance or something like that.
Yeah.
So hopefully this will end up there, but now it's open source. There's a GitHub repo for that. There is a spec out there. Everything is kind of standard now. Um, so this sort of essentially solves a real bottleneck in agent design. Right? Instead of rebuilding bespoke agents and stuffing everything in single context window, so skills allows you to sort of progressively disclose metadata. So this is the basic difference. That's why skills going to be very popular. The problem with MCP was or is when you create your MCP server and you sort of connect your MCP server can expose a number of tools, right? So for an example, there is a famous MCP server, lots of front-end developer users, which sort of connects to Chrome DevTool. When you load that MCP server is going to expose like 20 to 30 functions. Okay.
Oh.
Each function is going to have name, parameters, and descriptions. Now imagine the problem with MCP is that those 30 functions will always be loaded in the context. So you're taking up a real valuable real estate in the context of this 30 functions every time you're making an LLM call.
Wow.
MCPs are, I'm very careful about MCP. I have only 2 MCPs connected to my Claude code. Because they take up real estate, very important real estate. On the other hand, skills has this, what they call is a progressive disclosure. That means their initial metadata is very small. It's like a couple of lines. And that's get fed into the context of Claude or LLM. Now, the beauty of this is that when LLM thinks, okay, this skill might be useful, then it goes into this file called skills.md file that sort of exposes another layer of information.
Oh.
So that way, instead of loading everything upfront, you're gradually loading the context. So that's sort of the smart way to do that. And creating skills is simple as creating a markdown file. That's it. You don't have to
That's
create a Python code or JavaScript code or TypeScript, just a file, and you put it in a specific directory structure. and you're now, apparently now since open source, your Codex, Claude, and everything will be able to pick it up.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So all you have to do is sort of create name of your skills, a tiny description, and some sort of metadata. Put it in your and it can also accompany with references, sort of gradually opening. You could put a link saying, "Oh, you need more information about this context. Load this file again."
Oh.
So I feel like next year this skill is going to become huge. I mean, this is going to be bigger than MCP server. So.
Cool.
So let me drop the link in here so people can check it out.
I mean, MCP went wild. I mean, everybody now uses MCP, and I think Anthropic, just like you said, they're almost like the not just for OpenAI, they're like the R&D guys for AI. Everybody, they've contributed more to AI space more than every other
No, I
person.
mean, I think this will supersede MCP. I mean, there is a value of MCP, obviously, because it puts lots of structure in there.
Yeah.
But with skills, we are morely heavy to natural language, right? I mean, LLMs are really good at processing text. So skill is just a couple of lines you put it in here, like, hey, this is a PDF generation skills, or hey, this is my QuickBooks skills, and LLM will be able to figure it out. It's much easier and super simple for your context. So.
Yeah. All right. So I think my first story for today is going to be on OpenAI. I mean, so OpenAI had done like a major upgrade on their new model. It's called GPT Image 1.5. And they say this new model GPT Image 1.5 is 4 times faster than the predecessor, and then focus heavily on precision editing. And then it allows users to modify like specific parts of an image. It can change hairstyle, it can change your background, and then it also introduces like dedicated image workspace in ChatGPT for easier creative exploration. So I tried this out, or rather, I watched videos where people were trying this out, and it looks interesting because I saw someone upload one videos, and then they kept on using prompts to change that video. Oh, make them to look like a cartoon, add some kids running around in the background, wear them this particular kind of jersey, write this on their shirts, and then he kept on doing that and doing that. He kept on going that way. I mean, I've seen a lot of these models work, and then one of the things I know is that some of them knows how to add, but they can't remove. So when you tell them, "Oh, remove this," they'll tell you they can't remove. But when you say
Interesting.
add this, yeah, they can add. So I can actually say make the background green, right? The background goes green. But when I say remove the background, you can't remove the background, right?
So
So
this is a video editing or
yeah, I think
images.
images, yeah. So some of the things to know in their technical background is that they have this GPT image as an API. So they have an API, and this API is going to replace the previous one. And then this also has like 20% reduction in cost for both input and output, right? And then this model has demonstrated a massive leap in following complex instructions, and then generating perfect 6 by 6 grid specific items where other models are failed. And then also it has consistent engine, unlike the diffuser model that often rerolls this. It rerolls
I
like,
know. It's interesting. So there is a concept of I might play with this. So there is a concept of this holiday card you can create with uploading images.
yeah.
So maybe I can create like holiday greetings card and send it out to my friends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can. Yeah, you can. Yeah.
So this is sort of interesting. I know you covered a story about how OpenAI now partnered with Disney, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Disney
yeah, yeah,
characters.
yeah. I
So
think 3 weeks ago.
I can also use Disney characters to do a bunch of stuff
Yeah,
here.
you can now use
Yeah.
Disney characters to do a bunch
So
of
this
stuff.
is their answer to Nano Banana then?
I don't think anyone right now can answer to Banana Banana. Nano Banana is
That's crazy.
it's
It's
crazy. Like I was generating charts over the weekend for my
yeah.
school project. I will upload like a 400-page document, and I will
Yeah.
prompt it and say, "Oh, this particular model was mentioned in it, or look at this
Yeah,
particular example. Can you plot
yeah,
me a graph? I need to plot
yeah.
me a graph. I can say, oh, give me a table using this
That's
data.
crazy. That's wild.
And I could generate infographics on the fly. It's crazy. So I don't think Nano Banana is
That's
on another
beautiful.
level. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So moving to OpenAI here. So they have we covered the story, at least a model release last week, where GPT 5.2 release. This is their largest and probably the most high performing, the best model out there, top of the line model essentially. So they followed up with the GPT 5.2 Codex release. The Codex is OpenAI's coding agent. I hope our audience knows this by now. OpenAI is, but there are a couple of things that obviously this agents. I kind of zone out these days with coding agent stories, to be honest with you. They're
Yeah.
all like, this is the best, and there are a bunch of charts about the benchmark. I know how I feel about leaderboards, but anyway, this is best. This is better than what you have with GPT 5.1. If you are a Codex user, you definitely should upgrade. I saw in their note there was an interesting emphasis on sort of cybersecurity, which I thought was really, really interesting. So one of the main reason for one of the key differentiator of GPT 5.2 Codex is that this is optimized for long running software task. And we're seeing this pattern now, right? So coding agents are gradually moving from fix this for me to take this story, implement for me, to scan the whole code base and implement this giant feature for me, right? So from minutes to hours to now, these agents are capable for running days. And we covered stories like AWS also building what is it called, Keto or Kiro. That's also
Kilo.
optimized for Salah. Kiro, yeah.
Yeah.
But they emphasize on their post how this agent is also really good at sort of discovering a vulnerability in your code, security flaws in your code. And I see an interesting trend here. Maybe OpenAI is kind of doubling down on cybersecurity and fixing security bugs, because that's obviously a problem to be solved. So this agent has interesting flexible capabilities of sort of scanning your code base, trying out, figuring out where you have security flaws, and sort of build test harness and propose solutions for you.
Hmm.
So I don't know whether they specially train this agent or model to do this kind of task, but they're saying that Codex 5.2 is really good at that. So instead of discovering problems all the way at the end after deployment, essentially we're moving towards left. So imagine it real time
Oh
figures
yeah.
out the coding security problems for you, because obviously with AI code generation, security is becoming a really, really huge problem now. So it's good to
So,
see that they're focusing on that.
yeah. So does it mean that while the code generation is running, there's like another model or something else running, testing what the other model was generating? So the way we have multimodal agents, so one of the agents is a tester, and one is like the one writing the
Yeah, no,
code.
I mean, I don't know whether it's proactive that maybe you can design it lightweight, but you can sort of start Codex and say, hey, prompt it to say, find security problems in my code base.
Oh,
Now, this is very different than saying, go find a bug for me, right? This is a sort of a
yeah.
different type of characteristic, right? It's not just figuring out what's the compilation error, right? I mean, you can give a problem to any coding agent now and say, find where the issue is. I think
Yeah.
coding agents are getting really good at, but coding agents struggles a little bit saying, I don't know what the issue is. Why don't you tell me what could be the issue here in my code? Right? This
Yeah.
is a whole different way of thinking about the problem. So it finds out. So that means what it's doing is that it can build different type of test harnesses to test your code, saying where it breaks, and
Oh.
tells you, hey, here are some problems in your code base. Hackers can use this to hack your code, so we can fix that.
Oh, that's cool. And I can do this inside
Yeah,
Codex.
it's just almost like hiring a security engineer or cybersecurity expert to say, help me find issues.
All right. Okay, so I think this is one of the stories that came out immediately after our podcast last week, because this story has been around for a while. It's about Lovable. So Lovable raised about $330 million. at $6.6 billion valuation. And this fund series was led by Capital G and Menlo
Mhm.
Ventures. And then
Mhm.
they are saying they want to go build with this money. They want to go build like their own coding agent. Yeah, they said, what are we building? Let's look at what builders are doing in the large enterprise, and then so they're trying to build tools that users can use to build in large enterprise. I don't know if this is going to be like a proper coding tool or if this is going to be like something else inside Lovable. We don't know yet, but all we know is that they've raised a $330 million at a $6.6 billion valuation.
That's crazy.
And yeah, it's really crazy. I think last week we also covered, I think one of the companies, I think it was Kuso, that covered something last week because they wanted to build their own model, right? Their own coding
Mm.
model from scratch.
Mm.
They raised another crazy amount of money. So I've just been looking at the trend and
Mm.
how things are going so far. We have these companies running, raising crazy amounts of money. And then the guys raising this money are mostly like coding agents. So not to go back to our predictions of 2026, but then I think coding agents are really going to have a good time in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, they're here to stay. The question becomes, yeah, question becomes is that how the engineers can evolve. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So if you're an engineer, you're listening to this. I mean, I know a lot of engineers listen to this podcast. You need to think
Yeah,
about how you can evolve because
yeah,
coding agents are raising crazy money and then they are not going
yeah,
anywhere, just like Nanjan
yeah,
said. And then you have
yeah.
to find a way to survive, live with these agents, live with them.
So there was a story about this later on, but let's cover this because since you bring it up, brought it up, so this is a good context. So there is a vibe coding, there's a vibe engineering, right? I'm gradually getting to the point where it's going to sound a little crazy, but I'm getting into the point where I really don't look at the code anymore.
Hmm.
And that's might sound crazy, but I don't. But what I heavily focus on is that how I can essentially verify the work that's just working.
Okay.
Because if you do enough planning, so I spend, and you know this, I spend considerable amount of time sort of in planning phase to figure it out what to build, to
Yeah.
back and forth. That's where I essentially make sure that I provide enough instruction and context to make sure that the output is good. Then I focus on validating the output actually works.
Yeah.
So in my workflow, integration tests are becoming really, really important. Just making sure this this front end calls, this orchestrator calls, this agent, this MCP server going back, all to make sure that everything end to end works. And I think that's gradually sort of going to become a responsibility for software developers because when you push a pull request using this AI coding agents, you sort of have to make sure that your code works. That's sort of your primary responsibility.
Yeah.
Obviously, there is challenges with that, and I mentioned that in a couple of posts in LinkedIn. I'm really, really sort of concerned about this sort of evolution. We talked about in our podcast too, right? If
Yeah.
human in the loop is all our jobs sort of becomes verification and making sure the code works. Um, there are lots of challenges with that and problems with that. And then you are in the system because LLMs will never be responsible for the output, the code, right? You are finally responsible. What that means is that if something goes wrong, fingers will be pointed at you, not Claude saying Claude created a bad code. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we are replacing labor. So you're essentially not working. And you're working, but the labor is done by coding agents. Or most of the
Yeah.
work is done by coding agent.
Yeah.
So you're actually not doing the work, but you're responsible for the work, and you'll be blamed if the work that work doesn't go through.
Yeah.
I think that's a very interesting change in responsibility that lots of developers are not used to or not aware of that's coming. I
Yeah.
think that's going to be 2026 will redefine that essentially.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've also mentioned this before about, how in other engineering fields you have where, for example, you have the engineers, let's take for example construction sites. You have the engineers who are the ones, the architects, they all sit down in a room, they draw, they map out the beam, they do the calculations, and they give it to these laborers. So these laborers go in and they mix the sand, they carry it on their head, move around, make sure that these things are executed. The engineer just stand around and they point. They are the real guys, but they are not the ones doing the work. So I think that's sort of what is coming into software development right now. So the engineer sits around, do proper problem solving, you do the mappings, you find out, you learn
So
the tools, the tool,
yeah,
the
so then
behavior.
then we engineers move to the left, and I think this is what Harry was talking about in their podcast, like product engineers.
Yeah,
So I think if you move your skill towards more understanding the business problem you're solving, understand what, because judgment is yours. Claude will not tell you whether it's right or wrong.
yeah,
Whatever you tell Claude going to implement, right? That then it becomes your responsibility. Are you building the right thing?
yeah,
And there are roles already defined. Product managers is supposed to do that. Engineers' job was to take their instructions, requirements, and build it, right? That
yeah,
was typically how the role was defined, and nothing wrong with that. But the problem with this is that that's sort of changing
yeah,
now. Requirements can directly fit into this coding agents, and they're going to get better. I have no reason to believe they will not get better. They'll
yeah,
produce better code, better way to solve this long running run for days and whatnot. Then you in the system, what are you exactly doing, right? It reminds me of an office space. I take the requirements and give it to programmers.
yeah,
Why
yeah,
can't programmers take the requirement directly? So anyway, so that's sort of, I don't want to go through. Maybe we should have a different discussion on this. But anyway, that change going to surprise lots of people, I feel like, and lots of people might be not aware that this is coming and this is going to become real.
yeah.
Anyway, so moving to Google.
Okay.
We have lots of Google stories. This is maybe we should just rename our podcast saying Google Podcast. Anyway, so Google released Gemini 3 Flash. We talked about Gemini 3 Pro back in a couple of weeks back. They released Flash. I use Flash a lot. The main differentiation here is that obviously Flash is faster. That's the reason Flash. But they kept the reasoning and coding at almost at par with Pro. So
Yeah.
if you are thinking of building something really quick, which is really, really smart and has reasoning capabilities, Google Gemini 3 Flash should be your model. Because in terms of pricing also, whereas you pay $2 for a million token for Pro, you pay only 50 cents with Flash.
Oh,
So yeah, it's a no-brainer. So your default choice, if you are into Google models, which I'm gradually moving to, if your default choice should always be like Flash 3, Gemini 3 Flash, and maybe move your where you need really, really deep thinking, reasoning, and planning capabilities, then you sort of use Pro model.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
cheaper than Claude, cheaper than GPT 5.2. Grok is cheapest. Grok 4 is like 20 cents, and Gemini 3 is like 50 cents.
oh, that's actually very cheap. That's very
Lots of
cheap.
people keep telling me we should use Grok, but I haven't played with Grok at all.
I also saw some people saying Grok over the weekend on Twitter, and I was like, oh, maybe Elon Musk is paying them to say these things. But then, yeah, I don't know anyone personally using Grok.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone personally using
Um,
Grok. I use
I
Grok.
know a
I
few
use Grok
folks,
for
but they
this
are not
podcast.
technical.
I
Oh,
use
you do?
Grok for this podcast research, especially this episode. All the stories
Okay.
I've shared today, they all came from Grok.
Okay.
90% of the stories I'm sharing today came from Grok, right?
Okay.
Because I
Okay.
wanted to get conversations, what people are talking about on Twitter. So I went to
That's
Grok.
what I like about Grok. I mean, there's that element is sort of their secret power, secret sauce, their moat. I
Yeah,
like how they real time sort of index the
yeah,
tweets.
yeah, real time. So yeah, makes a lot of sense. Okay, so back to the previous story you shared before you shared the Google story. We were talking about models and how they are getting better. I didn't cover the story because I had to remove it after some time. I was trying to like reduce the things I want to talk about. So one of the stories is
Mm.
that the AIs are generating more AIs are generating more code these days than humans who are
Yeah.
reviewing them. So humans are
Mhm.
not capable or not enough to review the codes that these AI models are generating. So
Yeah.
I don't have the link to the story. Maybe I can look for it later and share on social media. But then, yeah, I saw the story, I read it, but then I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
didn't cover it in
No,
the
no, that's
podcast.
100% real. I mean,
Yeah.
and lots of industries also this is happening. Number of features they're pushing out is higher. Um, you're able to hear me, right? I see
Yeah.
connection issue. Okay. Yeah, number of features companies are able to push this year is higher. I think also at the same time, the defect rate also has gone higher a little bit, I believe. But that could be many reasons. It could be AI generated issues, could be coding review issues. But again, I go back to the problem. Sorry, I've been broken record, but people should think about this problem. This will become big. It's impossible to review all the code that's getting generated. You
Yeah.
cannot expect your software developers to manually review line by line about to doing this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, please. So that's what I said. I moved into something that, hey, I moved into something that I verify that software works is more important.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want me to cover the next story? This is a really interesting one.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I
Um,
think you should go on.
okay. Then I will do one more. There's so much stories, but maybe we'll not. Okay, this one is good. So this is a problem I know I've experienced. This is again from Google. Google released what they call is an A2 UI, a new standard for
Yeah.
AI-generated interfaces. Now let's talk about this problem a little bit. So, and I've experienced this problem firsthand, and I know there are other competing specs like MCP UI also. I feeling, but they're all fundamental solving one problem. That is, sometimes agent needs clarification, right? So let's say this is like a cliche example. Imagine you're booking a restaurant, right, via
Yeah.
chat, and that agent will do sort of back and forth, right? Okay, window, I want it next week. Which day exactly? I want on Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday there are 5 slots. So if you imagine having conversation like this in just text, input and output is really, really difficult, right?
Mm.
You have to ask for a date, then you have to ask for a time, you have to ask for which slots are available, how many people. There are lots of back and forth.
Yeah.
So what I did when this kind of standard didn't exist the beginning of this year is sort of created my own sort of on the fly UI generation. That means agent will just along with the clarified questions, it will tell the front end what type of UI elements it wants. So imagine instead of asking for it as a text input, you render a date input field like an UI where with a date picker, right? That becomes super easier for user to provide an input.
Yeah.
So this is what essentially A2 UI is doing. Agents output declarative UI specs. Agent tells like, hey, I want you to generate some sort of UI that will have this kind of characteristic. Okay.
Yeah.
From a catalog of components. So the agent will be given a, hey, here is your list of components like buttons, forms, cards. Now, the important thing here is that this is sort of declarative. Okay, this is not scripts. Okay, it's just declarative. That means the front end can take all this input. It's almost like getting a response from an agent that says, hey, I need a button, I need a date picker. Then front end can use any library, Angular, React, or whatever, then render that UI for you on the fly. So this is like an ephemeral UIs, right? The UI is getting generated on the fly. When you're done with an input, it's get closed.
So this from Google, right?
Yeah.
So you remember the browser thing that we talked about last week? Where I've forgotten what it's called, but they released this new thing where you put in a prompt, it generates a website for you, and then you
Mhm.
can interactive website for you. You can interact with
Mhm.
it, and they are
Mhm.
typically using the same example that you use here. So, I
Mhm.
mean, this reminds me of it, and I'm thinking this is probably like the model
Very
for
similar idea, but this is for agent to agent communication.
Oh, okay.
So there is an extension for this, which I'll be definitely using, I feel like, which is for A2A extension for A2 UI. That means when an agent says, I need an input, right now, what we are allowed to do, I mean, if you're not engineering this, is to send a raw text back. Hey, I'm happy to make a reservation for you, but which day you want,
Okay.
right? Then you render that user type in, I need for Wednesday. But instead of that, imagine that agent says, give a date picker to the user. So the user can select date and time for me. And the
Mhm.
UI takes a message and renders like a date picker UI field for you, where you can click and
Oh,
put that. That can happen dynamically.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
really smart. Yeah, yeah. Cool.
I mean, this is needed. This solves a really interesting problem because lots of apps are becoming like this now. We can't think of all the possible UIs, right? Your default UI could be like a chat GPT interface. But
Yeah,
underneath that, we can generate website, we can generate a video, we can generate an input form, we can generate a photo, everything sort of UI elements. So,
yeah. Okay. So I have another story here which says that Cursor acquires graffiti for AI code
graphite, right?
review. Graphite, yeah, for AI code review integration. So let me go to their blog post. Tom Gregg, I guess, is like the co-founder of Graphite. Said almost 5 years ago because the world best engineering team demanded a better code review platform. What we never expected was how dramatically tools like Cursor will transform our industry, empowering engineers to build features in hours and minutes. That would have Features that would have typically taken days or weeks without AI. So I guess what these guys are trying to do is that um, they are trying to help developers to review their code, before they push to production, right? So it is like an AI code review platform. And then Cursor just bought these guys so that they can be able to integrate them into their code. Again, they say they are still going to operate independently inside Cursor, but they are all going to focus on code review, making sure that any code that passes through Cursor, you can easily review your code and make sure that the code is up to standard before you go to production. So yeah. And then I don't think they call the amount. Yeah. So graphite is valued at $290 million. And then they said it's going to help with code review and debugging. And it's also going to help with stacked PR, creating an end-to-end AI development tool chain. This product update boosts automation in code quality assurance. So yeah, it's I think it's an interesting news because we've had a lot of big AI companies are acquiring like the smaller ones so that they can be able to make their processes better. Any day Lovable or Kuso, any of these guy lands a partnership with Amazon, it's finished. Your mic is muted. Your audio is muted.
Thanks. Sorry. Yeah, it's good for the code review, right? That's the exact problem we were talking about, right? How
Yeah.
code review becoming a huge bottleneck and challenge. I saw lots of sort of theories around that they are potentially going after GitHub. So there's one
Oh,
interesting way to think about this too is if you are building GitHub today, what is that going to look like? I mean, their primary GitHubs is not repository, right? GitHub
yeah.
is used for because it's bakes in your PR code review,
Mm.
tooling supports and all that, right? I mean, and Cursor is gradually moving towards that world. So it will be interesting to see. I think if you ask me, I think they're targeting GitHub as their competitor.
Oh, okay. I mean, GitHub. I mean, it's
I mean, anyone can be displaced, man.
okay. Let's see
Potentially.
how potentially. Let's
Except,
see how that.
except Google. No, I'm kidding. Uh, um, the code review was another very interesting thing about GitHub too. GitHub made it super easy back in days to review
Yeah,
code and review deltas. But now you have tools like Graphite, which provides AI context on review, right? This is also another important thing we talks about, right? I mean, I
yeah,
haven't generated the code, AI did. Now you're asking me to review this thousands lines of code, which I have no idea.
yeah,
Then Graphite tools like Graphite uses AI to provide you more context, like why this code, where it changes, what's the effects, so
yeah.
the stuff.
All right. Talking about Google, I think I should go to this next story
Sure.
because again, I think it ties to what you said about nobody can beat Google. So Google and Meta collaborate to challenge NVIDIA dominance. So Google is working with Meta to improve PyTorch support on tensor processing units (TPUs), aiming to make AI frameworks less dependent on NVIDIA's GPUs and proprietary CUDA, potentially lowering cost and increasing choice for developers training and deploying models at scale. I think you were the one that mentioned this some weeks back
Wait,
about,
so Meta is partnering with Google.
yeah, on TPUs,
You said PyTorch, right?
PyTorch TPUs, yeah, tensor
Mm-hmm.
processing units, yeah. So
PyTorch is a core library used for
yeah,
any of this ML
yeah,
things. It's like a backbone. So it gets sense. I mean, it makes sense they're optimizing PyTorch for TPUs because that potentially will decide which processors company is going to use.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm double down on Google, man. I mean, I think it's good to have a competitor. It's always good to have a competition.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
see how the market evolves.
And, and Mark Zuckerberg,
Maybe, yeah. No, go
I
ahead.
just gonna say that Mark Zuckerberg going with them is also something very interesting. I mean,
Yeah,
let's
never
talk
bet
about,
against Mark Zuckerberg. Never.
yeah,
He's always in a founder mode. I mean, I know they're having a little tough time with their super AI team and whatnot.
yeah,
It's been so much money to hire people and then firing people. I don't know what's going on. They're trying to figure it out, I feel like,
yeah.
but they will eventually. So, which also begs the question: what is Apple doing? Why there's no Apple stories in our queue is just fascinates me. Like, what are you guys doing? I'm sure
Yeah,
they're
what
doing
is
something.
Apple doing? I mean,
Yeah,
maybe they're waiting for the dust to settle and then they just look for who to buy.
probably,
I mean, yeah,
probably,
wait for the
probably.
dust to buy someone off and then, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. They definitely. This is also a really good thing to mention. You know how heavily reading about finance these days. So, I mean, Apple obviously has a huge cash, right?
oh,
Apple sits with a huge amount of cash. Yeah, yeah. And there is sort of two ways to think about it, right? If you're a high growing company, why you are sitting on a cash? Shouldn't you be using this cash on R&D to invest new products, right?
yeah, true.
As an investor, you're going to be wondering, what you might not have any product strategy. Then why are you sitting on this
Right,
cash?
you
Why you
on
not,
it, yeah,
right?
true.
Or other strategy could be, other potential reason could be they're just holding on because they want to buy new stuff,
Yeah,
companies. So that could be one that they're just waiting to settle down. I mean, uh, I feel like the amazing exit strategy for Anthropic could be Apple buying them.
Apple buying, yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, right now, remember what we've always been talking about on this podcast, right? They are
Mm.
the guys we know that they are profitable, like they're making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Anthropic, Claude,
Yeah.
right?
They're
And
doing
then
pretty good.
people are
Yeah.
paying for their models, right? So would they want to sell if people are really paying for their models? But then again, this is business at scale, so we don't know what
Mm.
it's gonna look like.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So maybe this is my last post. This sort of makes sense because this is probably our last podcast for the year. So this
yeah,
is from Andrej Karpathy, who is obviously was a data scientist and co-founder, one of the founding member of OpenAI. He was
yeah.
part of Tesla, and his literature on LLM is where I learned most of my
Yeah.
stuff.
I,
So
I
he
like
did
his
an
I like his videos on YouTube. Yeah, he
yeah,
has
it's
very
very
good
very
videos.
nice explanation. Yeah,
Yeah,
very nice. Um, so he did sort of end of the year sort of review for LLM
yeah,
2025 in LLMs, and he sort of mentioned few things, and I didn't summarize. We'll just walk through. He has a four key points, which I thought four or five key points, which I thought was really really interesting. So there is one trend since we are not very close to how machine learning folks work, but I was not aware of this trend, but this is interesting. So I knew that there was this back in days, we used to talk about reinforcement learning, right? Lots of
yeah,
time we still say that reinforcement learning. The fundamentals of reinforcement learning is that you ask machine to do something, sort of human in the loop, right?
yeah.
Human reviews the output and provides a feedback. What turns out is gaining more popularity is what he's calling that reinforcement learning from verifiable rewards. It's completely new, different kind of paradigm.
Hmm,
In this paradigm, you don't have human in the loop, so that means you can scale really fast. Okay, but
hmm,
instead, what you have is that you have more sort of verification step, like you have a failing test, or you know exactly what the output can look like, so you automate that verification instead of having a human. The challenge with having a human in the loop is human verifications are could be vague, right? Humans can type in. Have you seen how this flows work? Uh, So they usually hire lots of people in sort of Africa and India to do verification, right? Hey, here is a bunch of output LLM my model produced. Can
Yeah.
you label them? Can you rank them with the right and wrong? And there is always, it's almost like eval, right? There is always going to be an input field where humans will provide a feedback. But since these feedbacks could be text, it's usually sort of, it's not very concrete. It could be vague. It could be confusing. But with reinforcement learning with verifiable results, you have a failing test. That makes it super, super easy to do that. Now, there's limitations for that. You can do this really good with code, right? If you have a bug, you can ask your model to fix the bug, and it's easy to verify. You can write a test to make sure, or math problems. So now you see why these agents are getting really good at coding and math these days, right?
Yeah.
Because we found a way to easily build models and verify their results.
Yeah.
So that's sort of becoming popular. Another thing he sort of mentioned is he called this ghosts, not animals. So he's saying that LLM is getting really good at brilliant at math, but clumsy at common sense, right? We see that, right?
Yeah.
LLM is getting solve this crazy problem, and but answering dumb questions, not able to answer simple questions, and it's the whole sort of thing that is still an issue because the way we've been training these models with token puzzles and reward, like code and math, is getting really good at this, but we don't have enough verifiable tests to kind of validate the common sense question and answer sort of thing. So there's lots of stuff
Yeah.
going on. There's obviously another issue with leaderboards, right? Every model, I feel like they will not admit this. They are overfitting this model on leaderboards. So that's why this leaderboard
The overfeeding it on. You said that overfeeding it on what?
overfitting on the leaderboard challenges, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, that's why
Okay.
out of the gate, 90%, 95%. So I mentioned this before also. I think it would be really, really smart for companies to build their own leaderboards, own set of test suites that are not public, that's are internal. So anytime you're deciding, like I'm deciding moving from Flash this to Gemini 3, how will I know that
Yeah.
truly it's going to be better? You are telling me better on the leaderboards, but will it perform well in
Yeah.
my leaderboard? So having that sort of confidence is very, very important, I think, going forward.
Yeah.
The next one is sort of obvious cursor and rise of vertical LLM apps. I think that's real. I mean, the wrapper argument no longer stands anymore. I think the app layer is back essentially. I feel like because now you can own the context, lots of context engineering, lots of orchestration, multi-agent, this and that. That's sitting on top of LLMs that generating tremendous value, like Lovable, Cursor, and all the examples that we see. And Agent Link
Yeah.
next year. So vibe
Yeah.
coding is sort of mainstream. We talked about this. I think I saw a recent tweet from the founder of Replit, and Satya saying something like vibe coding is going to become even bigger than normal knowledge work, I feel like, because anything you can think of an idea, you should be able to sort of vibe code that.
Yeah.
That's why, I mean, so directions that make sense. Lovable and other companies are raising lots of money because enterprises, I mean, inside enterprise, you have no idea how much enterprises pay for building custom apps to this consulting
Yeah.
companies. Now they will just vibe code those. Um,
Yeah.
and obviously, your favorite Nano Banana and GUI Frontier is the next level with LLM. So that's sort of his summary.
Yeah. Those are interesting, very interesting
Mhm.
things. I mean, vibe coding one is on point, right? The model's been very good at solving maths
So
and
this is
programming
sort
problems.
of I made one comment I will say, not from his post, by the way. I'll share the link here shortly. This is sort of my observation or my thinking about this. That LLMs that we've been training so far, we are optimizing so much on you should know this answer, right? This is what the expectation we have built on this model. I'm going to give you a coding
Yeah.
challenge. You better solve it for me. If you can't, you're
Yeah.
not good for me, right? That's sort of the user expectations now, right? I give you answer. I give
Yeah.
you a question. You better answer me. And who was I think the founder of DeepMind was. I'm a big fan. You should watch that movie by the Thinking Game. Have you seen that movie?
No, I haven't. Is it on
I
Netflix?
think it's on YouTube, or it's it
Okay.
It's
I'll
not
look
in
for it.
Netflix, it's in Amazon Prime. I think you should definitely watch that Thinking Game. It's the story of the founder
Okay.
of DeepMind and how he's been working on AGI before we knew the AGI term, right?
Oh
So
wow.
his thing about that's fundamentally sort of flawed nature, right? That have one that knows everything. Whereas we should be thinking about models that might say, sorry, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn, right? Right now, models are designed such a way that we penalize model if model says, I don't know, and that forces model to hallucinate, right? That's a fundamental problem. Even
Hmm.
if it doesn't know answer, it has to give you answer, so it make up some answer.
Yeah.
Whereas what he
Oh
was
wow.
arguing about, that's obviously not the right path to reach AGI. The right path to AGI is saying, model recognizes saying, sorry, I don't have this knowledge. Let me go learn about it, and I'll come back with an answer.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So that's that. I thought that was very interesting.
All right. So I think that's really a good place to end the podcast for
Hmm.
today,
Hmm.
for this month, and for this year. So this is like the last the last recording for the year. And this is crazy because this is episode 37. So that means 37 out of the 52 weeks of this year, we came
We did
here.
this.
We did this, yeah. We came here.
I enjoyed doing this. I mean, I learned in the process to write.
Yeah, I enjoyed. I mean, I always look forward to this podcast every week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's one of my best part. It's one of the best part of my week all week. So, yeah. So thank you everyone that joined us. I don't know how many people joined us on Twitter, but then yeah, thank you if you're listening on Twitter, if you're on
Hmm.
YouTube, if you're on LinkedIn, anywhere you're watching us from, even if you're watching the recording after. Thank you very much for for joining us and then for keeping a date with us. This is me saying Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Neil, you want to say something to the
Merry
audience?
Christmas and Happy New Year. Take rest. Enjoy, read books. Next year is going to be really, really exciting.
Yeah. Also, go back and watch our predictions for
That's true.
next year. I'm going to cut out that part it on YouTube so that you guys can just see. We made
Yeah.
some
Are you going to
predictions.
make a bunch of reels on that? Yeah, we should. That
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a
yeah.
really good podcast. And
Yeah,
shout out to Harry for that too. He did a
yeah,
wonderful job.
Harry.
Yeah.
Shout out to Harry for coming here. All right, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week.